section in this portal, then you have to go to the Support in Navigation Certification Exam Introduction page. What you are about to take will be the Cloud Computing Certification. If you press the button, you'll be guided to our Alibabacloud ACA Cloud Computing Certification Exam Introduction page. So here are some introduction about the exam, and here are an exam outline and also some example questions. So if you press the exam outline, you'll be guided to a document about the exam, and also there are some tips about how to prepare the exam. So it listed some resources that you can find on Alibabacloud portal, and also some related information about the exam. Like in this section, it talks about how much questions you will face in the exam and how long will be the exam. And when you drag a little bit downward, you will see the ratio of the cloud products in this exam. So in this exam, it will test you the knowledge about ECS, SLB, OSS, RDS, autoscaling, security services and cloud monitor, and also some general knowledge about cloud computing. And the ratio is shown in here. And also the exam is composed by single selection, multiple selection, and true-false questions. So you will face 30 single selection questions, 10 multiple selection questions, and 10 true-false questions. So now let's go back to the previous page and go to the example questions. So you will see the example questions starting from page 3. So here are some example questions that you may see in the real exam. So let's go through them one by one. So the first question, when using Alibabacloud SLB, you can set different weights for backend ECS instances. The higher the weight of a backend ECS instance, the more load will be assigned to it. If an SLB instance has 5 ECS instances in the backend server pool, all of which are healthy, among these 5 ECS instances, the weight of ECS underline inst1 is set to 100, and then which of the following statements is correct? Well, this one is a little bit tricky, but actually if you are careful enough, you should be able to find that in this question, you only need ECS, right? And in the there are instances, and you don't need right? It should be the first one, right? You don't know enough information, so you cannot tell what would happen. So it's A. Okay, so then let's move on to the second question. A company wants to use Alibaba Cloud Service to replace their self-built database. So what should it choose? Well, this one should be very straightforward. They want to self-build database. They want to use a managed. And in Alibaba Cloud, it is yes. Then let's move on to some multiple choice questions. So the first one, cloud computing facing security threats mainly from availability, integrity, and confidentiality. The following threats will directly impact the availability of cloud services. So there are 2 attacks. So those 2 are, well, the first one you may already know that it should be the DDoS attack, which will directly impact the availability. It will bring your server down. And then the other one, well, if you don't know the real correct answer, since we know there are only 2 correct answers, so you should know there are only 1 remaining answer that is correct. Then let's go through them one by one. So how about the brute force cracking? So brute force cracking is trying to crack into your server and then take advantage of your server. So of course it doesn't want to bring your server down, so it will not impact the availability. And how about backdoor? Well, if a hacker tried to implant backdoor in your website, then of course it doesn't want to make your server down because it wants to make your server online so that more people, more victims that browse the website will get hacked by the backdoor. So this one, C, of course, it is not the correct answer as well. So finally, you'll find out that the correct answer is B and D. And if you don't know, CC attack is a kind of a variant of DDoS attack. So it's similar to DDoS attack. Both, they have the characteristic of bringing down your server, which impact the availability. Okay, so now let's move on to the second question, which is Alibaba Cloud OSS is a cloud storage service that features massive capacity, outstanding security, low cost, and high reliability. To store files in OSS, you must create a bucket and then upload and manage files in the bucket. So which of the following statements are true for buckets? So in this one, we have 3 correct answers, meaning that, well, actually what you have to choose is to find the one that is wrong. So which one is wrong? The earlier 3, actually they all look very correct, but if you go to the final option, you'll find that it tells about during bucket creation, you have to specify the maximum capacity, and this is not true for OSS. In OSS, when you create a bucket, to create the name of the region where the bucket is launched of the bucket and set the characteristic of the bucket, which is a standard bucket or a low frequency bucket or an archived bucket, and that's it. You don't need to specify the maximum capacity of the bucket. So this one, of course, B is wrong. So the correct answers are A, B, and C. So now let's move on to the true or false questions. So how about the first one? Alibaba Cloud Object Storage, which is named Object Storage Service, OSS for short, provides massive, secured, relatively low cost, and high reliable cloud storage service, and users can upload and download files to or from OSS through web console or API. So how about this one? Is it correct or wrong? Well, the part that determines whether it's correct or wrong is actually this line. So you can see that it says about user can upload or download file to from OSS through web console or API, and that is correct because in the demo you'll see that we upload or download file through the web console, and API is of course supported as well because we Alibaba Cloud we have a CLI command tool that through API you can do command line call through those API to control OSS. So OSS of course is support API also. So this one is of course true. And then the following one, the second one. Autoscaling can automatically remove unhealthy ECS instances from the scaling group, and this feature is called elastic self-health. Yet, after removal, the user has to manually add equivalent amount of new ECS instances back to the scaling group. So how about this one? Is it correct or is it wrong? Well, the line that determines whether it's correct or wrong should be this one. It says, after removal, the user has to manually add equivalent amount of ECS into the group. So the manual thing looks very strange. It does everything automatically. Then why does it need to do things manually again? So number 2 is of course false. You don't need to manually add equivalent amount of ECS into the group. And then number 3. Cloud disks provide a secure storage method to ensure that your stored content will not be lost. However, if the data stored on a cloud disk is incorrect due to an application error, or the data is maliciously tampered by hackers through an application vulnerability, snapshots ensure that your data can be restored to the desired state. So how about this one? Well, it talks about the feature of snapshot, right? So is this the feature of snapshot? Helping you to restore from the catastrophic stage to the desired state. So is it correct or wrong? Well, of course it's correct. And actually this is the main feature of snapshot. Snapshot, but after you make a snapshot, snapshot can ensure that later when something wrong happens, you can use the snapshot to restore the data to the desired state. So that's kind of the key feature of snapshot, the reason why we have this feature. Okay, so that's all for the example questions. And also let me provide a small tip to help you prepare the Alibaba Cloud ACA exam. So in the exam syllabus, you should note that in here, in this page, there's a ratio of the cloud products that are covered in this exam. So I do strongly recommend that, for example, you see ECS in here, and it takes up a lot of proportion in the exam. So then you go to our Alibaba Cloud portal, you drag downward to the documentation center, and then you find the product, for example, like ECS, you click it, and you take a careful look of the quick start part, which actually talks about a lot about the product itself. So it talks about how to select configuration, how to create an instance, and also how to do some operations on disks. So I do strongly recommend you take a look at the product documentation page and read at least the quick start part. And if you have enough time, I also recommend you to take a look at the product introduction. Although this one is a little bit more than the quick start, this one may have like 50 to 60 pages, but it does bring you a very good understanding of the product because it goes through a lot of detail. So not only ECS, but also other products like RDS, OSS, and SLB, which should be in here. Please also go to their page in the documentation center and take a look at the product introduction and also the quick start section before you take the ACA exam. This will really bring a lot of help